A silver harvest moon hung low over the suburb, casting everything in an eerie, pale light. The streets lay silent, save for the occasional breeze rustling through the hedges and the distant hum of a late-night delivery truck. Perched in the twisted limbs of an ancient oak at the corner of Maple Drive, four raccoons peered down at their prize, Mrs. Benson's bakery. Slick, the eldest and craftiest of the crew, crept along a sturdy branch. His gray-silver fur ruffled in the moonlight, and his black bandit mask gleamed with anticipation. Beside him, Pockets flexed her dexterous fingers, already plotting which pockets to pick once inside. Whiskers, the lithe climber, tested the bark with his claws, eyeing the gap beneath the basement window. Nibbles, small but sharp-nosed, twitched his whiskers at the scent of warm bread, the sweet tang of cinnamon rolls, and the buttery aroma drifting from the cracked vent near the dumpster. Through a narrow alley, the bakery's back wall rose in red brick. A single security camera swung in a lazy arc, its lens reflecting the moon as it scanned the ground below. Slick studied its rotation. 30 seconds focused on the dumpster, 30 seconds on the alley. He counted the seconds in his head, timing its sweep like a metronome. Pockets pressed a soft paw against the camera's dome, confirming its blind spots. Beyond the camera's patrol, the basement window sat ajar, a sliver of opportunity. Whiskers hopped down, pressing his small body against the bricks, tracing a path of mortar lines and rough fissures up to the sill. He measured the distance, tail flicking in silent approval. Meanwhile, Pockets sniffed around the dumpster lip, confirming that the back door was locked and bolted, a diversion they could ignore in favor of the upstairs storage racks. Slick's eyes glowed with a mix of hunger and glee. "At the chime of midnight," he whispered, voice barely louder than a rustling leaf. "Whiskers goes up, Pockets and Nibbles slip in for the goods, and I'll keep watch. No barking dogs, no flashing lights. Just us and the spoils." He let the words hang in the moonlit air, a promise of butter-soft pastries and sugar-crusted delights. As the grand clock atop Maple Drive tolled 11:59, the raccoons tensed in unison. A final gust of wind rattled the oak's leaves like applause. With hearts pounding and whiskers quivering, they prepared to descend into the night, stealthy silhouettes on a daring mission to pull off the most audacious bakery heist the suburb had ever seen. As the clock's final chime faded into the night, Whiskers sprang into action. From the oak's lowest bough, he dropped onto the alleyway's shadowed pavement, paws silent on concrete. The moonlit bricks stretched above him like a vertical canyon, but his lean body flattened against the wall, claws finding purchase in the mortar's crevices. His ascent was a dancer's grace, each tight foothold and fingertip grip deliberate, measured, silent. Below him, the hum of the bakery's refrigeration units pulsed through the cracked vent, a baseline to his daring climb. At the sill of the basement window, a narrow, glass-paned aperture swinging inward, he paused. A thin beam of golden light spilled into the alley, illuminating dust motes dancing in the stale air. Whiskers leaned forward, nostrils flaring as he pinpointed the latch's precise location. With the softest of clicks, his nimble fingers worked the simple lock, loosening it until the window swung open without protest. A cool draft of yeasty warmth escaped, carrying promises of freshly proofed dough and sugar-spiced confections. Below, Slick remained vigilant. He paced the dumpster's far side, ears flicking at every distant sound. A stray cat's meow, a car door's click, the bakery's air conditioner cycling on. Pockets and Nibbles crouched behind a stack of empty crates, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. Nibbles inhaled deeply, the buttery scent of croissants so close it made his stomach rumble. At Whisker's signal, a soft tap against the window frame, Pockets and Nibbles slipped into the basement's dim interior. Their paws barely disturbed the thin layer of flour dust on the concrete floor as they crept toward the wooden storage racks. Pockets traced her fingers along the shelves, mapping the location of prized prizes. A row of cinnamon rolls twinkling with sugar crystals, baskets of butter-rich brioche, and heavy glass jars of vanilla custard and jam. Meanwhile, Whiskers slid through the window's opening and landed in a shadowed corner, buffering the sound of his descent. He scanned the room for the next obstacle, a motion-activated floodlight perched above the main door. Carefully, he padded toward its sensor and used a discarded rag to muffle any glare, ensuring the bakery's glow remained unchanged. In the hush of the basement, the raccoon crew converged. First Whiskers, then Pockets, then Nibbles. They exchanged soft, chittering encouragement, tails brushing with silent camaraderie. Above them, the security camera's blind spot shifted away, thanks to Slick's timely whistle, granting them precious minutes. As the first pastries were nudged free from their wicker prisons, sleet-fine sugar dusted their whiskers. The raccoons paused, savoring the moment before the real haul began. Each step of their meticulously crafted plan had led to this instant. The unlocking of the window, the silencing of the floodlight, and the assembly of the perfect team. Beyond the basement walls, the suburban night held its breath, unaware that a daring bakery heist, crafted with paw, claw, and cunning, was unfolding in the moonlit shadows. With the basement window secured and the floodlight sensor silenced, Pockets and Nibbles crept toward the bakery's treasure trove. The storage racks rose like gilded altars, heavy wicker baskets brimming with golden croissants, cinnamon rolls iced in intricate swirls, and sugar-dusted danishes, whose aroma set Pockets' whiskers twitching in eager anticipation. Pockets, ever the tactician, selected the first prize, a row of pillowy brioche buns still warm from the oven. She used her flexible paws to lift one bun at a time, cradling them gently against her chest while ensuring no stray crumbs drew unwanted attention. Nibbles darted between shelves, his keen nose guiding him to jars of raspberry jam and custard. He nudged each jar loose and tipped it upside down, pouring the fragrant preserves into a series of bark-lined pouches the raccoons had stashed in a corner. Above them, Whiskers stood sentinel by the window, eyes scanning the beam of the lone security camera as it swept lazily across the basement floor. When its gaze drifted toward the far corner, he gave a soft chitter, signal to hurry. Down below, Pockets and Nibbles worked in harmonious silence, stacking pastries in woven leaf baskets designed to cradle fragile loot through the return climb. Just as Pockets lifted the final cinnamon sugar swirl, a faint click echoed from the main door, an alarm switch testing cycle. Her heart skipped, but Nibbles reassured her with a soft brush of his tail against her side. Whiskers, catching the tension, dropped lightly to the floorboards, scurrying over to the camera's base. With deft teeth, he dislodged its mounting bracket, sending it slack into a hidden pouch. The camera's whir died, and the basement was plunged into complete stillness, broken only by the raccoon's quiet breathing and the distant hum of the bakery's refrigerators. With the path clear, Pockets signaled the next phase. Whiskers darted forward and intercepted the largest basket of croissants, hooking it with his claws and sliding it toward the window ledge. Nibbles hauled the jam-filled pouches over, each one clutched carefully in his jaws. Pockets followed, ensuring no crumb fell to betray their presence. One by one, the pastries and preserves rose through the window, whisked away by Whiskers onto an adjacent rooftop, where Slick waited with a lookout's vigilance. For a precious minute, the raccoons worked as one well-tuned machine, each movement precise, each roll essential. Then, with the final jar secured, Pockets offered a triumphant chitter. The basement lay exactly as they'd found it. No overturned shelves, no spilled flour, no sign of intrusion. Only the lingering warmth of fresh pastry and the faintest sugar-sweet dust in the air. Ghostly evidence of the most audacious moonlit bakery heist ever filmed. With their baskets brimming and bellies humming in anticipation, the raccoon crew faced the most perilous leg of their daring operation, the escape. Below, the basement lay deceptively silent, the camera disabled and the floodlight neutralized. But outside, patrols of neighborhood dogs and the occasional prowling cat could spell disaster at any moment. Slick, stationed on the adjacent rooftop, tapped out a rapid series of chirps to signal all clear, then uncurled his body and slipped down a narrow drainpipe to meet his crewmates. Whiskers and Pockets hauled the final basket of cinnamon sugar swirls up the windowsill and into Slick's waiting paws. Together they retreated to the rooftop's far corner, where 3 pepper-scrubbed towels, stolen earlier from a clothesline, lay folded like a makeshift sled. Nibbles led the descent, weaving the jam-filled pouches into a dense bundle tied with strips of discarded cloth. Behind him, Pockets arranged the towels on the sloping roof, creating a slick slide directly to the backyard fence. With a nod from Slick, Whiskers tested the slide first. Dropping the croissant basket onto the towels, he sent it gliding silently toward the fence, where the others caught it in perfect unison. One by one, the raccoons sledded their spoil down the roof. Nibbles with his jam pouches, Pockets with her basket of brioche, and finally Slick with the mother load of butter-soft croissants. Each delivery was met by a soft rasp of gratitude as the loot was whisked away around the fence's corner. Beside the sliding track, the patrol dogs, drawn by the faint odor of flour, circled the perimeter, noses to the ground, tails twitching. At the exact moment a hound barked in frustration, Slick sounded a low, theatrical chuckle and triggered the final diversion. He nudged a beam of moonlight-coated tinsel dangling from the eaves, sending it clattering against the roof's edge. The dog spun toward the sound, providing the perfect distraction for the raccoons to vanish into the night, treasure in tow. Within minutes, the quartet reconvened in a hidden hollow beneath the oak. Their paws dusted with sugar and smiles twitching on every masked face, they shared a triumphant chitter. The plan had unfolded flawlessly, and not a single crumb was lost, or led back to Mrs. Benson's unsuspecting bakery. In the hush of the suburban midnight, the raccoon crew celebrated their moonlit heist, a masterclass in stealth, teamwork, and the irresistible lure of freshly baked delights. Under the sheltering boughs of the old oak, Slick, Pockets, Whiskers, and Nibbles congregated around their prize. Moonlight filtered through the leaves, illuminating baskets overflowing with golden croissants, sugar-glazed cinnamon rolls, flaky danishes, and jars brimming with berry-red jam and velvety vanilla custard. Despite their triumph, each raccoon knew the haul would taste bitter if hoarded. Tonight called for a shared feast, and rewards spread equitably. Slick cleared his throat, a raspy signal learned from many woodland councils, and produced a length of vine. With deft paws, he wove 4 compartments in a hollowed log, designating one for each member. Pockets sorted the pastries by size and fragility. Flaky danishes in her own section, sturdy brioche buns and Whiskers, and the delicate cinnamon swirls, earmarked for Nibbles' indulgence. He, in turn, poured honeyed jam into small leaf pouch cups that fit snugly into Pockets' division, ensuring she could savor every drop. Whiskers, ever the perfectionist, arranged his buttery croissants in concentric circles, their golden arcs catching the moonlight like miniature crescents. He then dug through the log's hidden compartment for a stash of acorn flour biscuits he'd pilfered weeks earlier, adding them to Pockets' share as a surprise bonus. Nibbles topped his custard jars with a sprinkling of crushed nutmeg, an aromatic flourish for their midnight indulgence. With the spoils divided, the crew reclined in a loose semicircle. First, they toasted the night's success by tapping their paws in rhythmic chittering, a raccoon's version of raising glasses. Then, they dug in. Pockets closed her eyes as the jam's tart sweetness burst on her tongue. Whiskers crunched into a brioche, savoring its pillowy center. Nibbles plunged his paw into custard, flicked it across his whiskers, and giggled at the cool richness. Slick, for his part, tucked into a stack of warm croissants, letting the buttery layers melt in his mouth. Between bites, they shared hushed stories. Slick recounted the moment he disabled the camera. Pockets described the elegant dance of pastries up the windowsill. Whiskers bragged about scaling the brick wall without a single slip. Nibbles swelled with pride over his jam pour. Their laughter rippled through the oak's roots, mingling with the soft rustle of leaves and the distant call of an owl. As crumbs glittered beneath their paws and bellies filled in contented warmth, each raccoon realized the true treasure of the night. Not the sumptuous bakery haul, but the bond forged through shared risk and reward. And as the moon dipped low, they settled into a satiated hush, dreaming of future adventures secret recipes, and the next moonlit heist that would carry their legend through the neighborhood's whispered lore. By the time the moon slipped behind a curtain of clouds, the Raccoon Quartet sat sated and content, baskets emptied, and custard jars gleaming empty in the hollow logs compartments. Yet the night's work was not done. They had to erase every sign of their daring escapade before dawn's first patrols began. Slick rose first, tail flicking. He darted to the edge of the oak's roots and retrieved a length of burlap, discarded long ago behind the bakery. With nimble paws, he draped it over the emptied baskets, folding each corner precisely so that no pastry residue peeked out. Pockets joined him, brushing stray sugar crystals from the log's carved grooves and licking away any sticky traces with practiced licks. Each crumb that might betray their presence vanished between her deft fingertips. Meanwhile, Whiskers and Nibbles worked on the paw prints. With a small twig in hand, Whiskers scraped away the raccoon-sized footprints leading to the oak's hollow, scattering dry leaves over the disturbed soil. Nibbles followed behind, patting the ground gently with his padded paws to mimic bird tracks, an ingenious camouflage that would fool any passing hound or human. They retraced their steps to the fence's foot, smearing dirt along the baseboards to erase any scuff marks where the baskets had glided over. As they finished, a distant dog bark rose, a sign that the neighborhood's nocturnal peace was starting to crack. Slick called a silent signal, and the crew gathered their hidden tools, the vine-woven pouches, the folded towels, and the ragged burlap. With one final chitter of triumph, they stashed each item in a concealed hollow beneath the oak's massive trunk, a secret toolbox for future escapades. Then, as the first stars blinked out in the pre-dawn sky, the raccoons slipped away one by one. Whiskers scaled the oak and vanished into higher branches. Pockets melted into a tangle of underbrush. Nibbles trotted toward the far hedge, and Slick, ever the leader, paused to survey their handiwork. The ground was undisturbed, the log and baskets concealed, and even the faint scent of pastry had dissipated on the cool night air. In the pale wash of streetlights, the suburban world looked unchanged, no sign that a midnight raid had unfolded just hours before. And as dawn's first birds began their song, the raccoon crew retreated to their secret den, their hearts still pounding with the thrill of the night's success. They had pulled off the most daring moonlit bakery heist ever filmed, and left behind nothing but whispers and wonder. As dawn's primrose glow broke over Maple Drive, the suburban world awoke none the wiser. Mrs. Benson's bakery opened its doors to a fresh batch of goods, unaware that the previous night's oven-fired treasures had vanished without a trace. Yet everywhere else, an echo of the raccoon's feet resonated. From the edges of the oak's shadowy den, Slick emerged first, surveying the sunrise-painted rooftops with a satisfied gleam. One by one, his crew joined him. Pockets stretched and flexed her dexterous paws. Whiskers preened, his fur still dusted with a faint trace of flour. Nibbles sniffed the crisp morning air, searching for any lingering scent of jam. Together they convened in their hidden hollow to review the night's spoils. Not just the pastries, but the flawless execution, the seamless teamwork, and the whispered solidarity born of shared risk. They took stock of the leftover tools in their burlap stash, the vine-woven pouches, the folded towels, the spare crumbling twig that had scraped away their tracks. These implements, each stained with sugar or jam residue, were more than mere tools. They were badges of honor, tokens of their cunning alliance. Slick packed them carefully into a secret compartment beneath the oak's buttress roots, ensuring that future crews could use the same arsenal for their own daring raids. Word of the heist spread among the neighborhood's nocturnal community. Alley cats mewed in admiration at midnight rendezvous. Fox kits lingered near the bakery's lights for hopeful crumbs. And even the opossums paused in their scavenging routes to exchange knowing glances. The raccoon crew's legend had woven itself into the hush of backyard fences and the rumble of dusty gutters. Later that day, as children lined up for morning pastries, Mrs. Benson discovered a lone, sugar-glazed cinnamon roll, perfectly intact, tucked beneath a planter on her storefront steps. Bewildered, she picked it up with gentle fingers, tasting its sweet swirl. A smile crept across her face. "A gift," she murmured, slipping it into her apron pocket. In that simple gesture, she unknowingly honored the raccoon's code. Take only what you need, leave a token in return, and vanish before the world can blink. At twilight, the quartet reunited one last time under the cottonwood's whispering leaves. They shared a final communal nibble of the remnant cinnamon roll, dividing it equally so that no one went hungry, and no doubt remained about the strength of their bond. In the weeks that followed, their Moonlit heist became bedtime lore for raccoon kits, a story of silver masks, midnight raids, and the sweet taste of freedom and fellowship. And long after the flower dust had settled, the secret oak remained their shrine, a silent testament to the audacity, ingenuity, and unity of the raccoon crew that pulled off the most daring bakery heist ever filmed. For in the hushed hours between night and dawn, when the world sleeps and scents guide the bold, legends are born on the smallest pause and echo through the silent streets like the sweetest proof of kinship.